Yo, I need everybody to put their hands together right now. Big Money League in effect. And I go by the name of Kanye.
My mother made me believe in myself.
Hey everybody, what's good? It's Dreamer. Today we're gonna be making some beats inspired by Donda. Let's get your drums ready. Pull out those fat stick drums, put them in your DAW. Let's get started. So first things first, we got this rim. A lot of these drums I'm using in here are inspired by a mix of the track Hurricane, which is on Donda, and Good Morning, just because that's one of my favorite Kanye songs. I love the drum sequencing in that. So yeah, we're just gonna lay a simple rim shot down. And then next, we got this thick fat kick. Now I pretty much abuse the hell out of this kick, but it's one of my favorite ones, and it sits in pretty much any situation you want to put it in. So I decided to do that. So next thing, we got these hats. These are some old school ones. I basically want to throw these down as like a scratch hi-hat track. And then you can also use them for later if you're trying to do something different in your sequence or your arrangement. Now, next up, we got my favorite part, the melody. Okay, so time to break down the melodies. So my goal with this melody was to make it sound like it could have been chopped in a sampler like an MPC or something like that on those lines. I try to keep a consistent idea, as I feel most of the samples on Donda are like a consistent one or two ideas. And then a lot of the work is actually carried from Kanye's vocals. And we don't have access to those vocals right now, but what we do have access to is Splice, Arcade, and things like that, where we can take gospel vocals and add them into other things. So I'm gonna let you guys listen to that right now. Now, to add some dynamics with this, I've got the original vocal sample playing as well as the new one in the first half. And in that second little bit, it drops out just so it gives more dynamic range, I guess. And when the other stuff is happening, you can't really tell, but it just makes it sound like different things are happening underneath. So next, let's move up to this reverse guitar. Now, I think it's important in any sample you make to have some sort of live element, whether it be a sample of a live instrument or something you play yourself, just to bring that sort of vinyl character, I guess you could say, into your work. So let me just play this reverse guitar. And here's the original. So as you can see, the original's not quite as interesting. And the reverse element really adds like a spooky, gloomy type of atmosphere to the whole sample instead of just being a simple guitar lead that you've heard a million times. So next, I have all these keys stacked. Now, what these do is, again, they're just a simple chord progression, but it's chopped up to make it feel like it was in a sampler or chopped up by a sampler. Next, we move on to these strings. Now, these are to bring some more dynamics as well, because there is a lot of string sections in this record, but they're not as, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not as big sounding or huge sounding as it would be on something like My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. It's more of a subtle string feel, but I still wanted to have this sample to have more attack than just be a slow type string sample. So I'll let you guys listen. This is also the Symphony Orchestra plugin from Spitfire. BBC, this is a free plugin. It's really good. I have it on Spiccato right now because I want it to be short and fast notes. Same underlying progression as well throughout. So yeah, that's our subtle attack string. Next, we've got two other strings. Now we've got more violins and cellos, and they're basically doing the same thing, but it's just the chords. And then to add more of a fuller sound, I could have just left it as the string parts, but I wanted to add a piano just because Kanye uses pianos a lot, who doesn't? And they always generally sit well in a sample. But yeah, same melody as those short strings that we had earlier. And now we get into the part that really adds a lot of character to the sample and makes it sound a bit different. So this next part is Heavy Heart. It's some strings from Arcade. It's from Overture. And I've just got these going right here. It adds a ton to the sample, if I'm honest with you. Always look for some live instrumentation that's going to take your sample to the next level. Yeah, that alone over top of everything really adds a ton of character and just takes your sample to the next level. So let's go down. I have this simple pad. This is basically just to fill out space because without this pad, that frequency is kind of left untouched. And you can choose to do that or not. I just personally like my samples to be very full. You can always turn down that frequency in an EQ later when you're making a beat. Yeah, same MIDI as a piano and those strings. So yeah, I really like that one. It's super airy, super kind of 80s spacey sounding. I think it just sits really well. And then I have this respace sub just going with all the bass notes just to even fill it out even more. Usually when I make the beat, I cut this out anyway, but when you listen to the sample, it just adds a lot. Still following those same chops as before. So yeah, that is the bulk of the sample. The rest is just sequencing. And now let's get on to the rest of the drums and finishing this beat. All right, so now that we've got everything loaded up into the same project, the first thing we're gonna do is replace those old hats with some trap ones to add some more bounce. So I just have a straight pattern lined up right now. Let's go ahead and let's add some rolls. Pull out your paintbrush tool, hold Command to use it. Let's go and listen and let's add some. So I'm gonna do a roll right there. And I actually want to see 30-second notes on the grid, so I can do these little ones right there. And I dig that. What I'm going to do is go mess with the velocities so it's not so same sounding. Let's go right there. Let's do that again. Let's go down, and then let's make it go back up. And it's also A to open that note velocity tab. Okay, I really like that. So I'm gonna copy that pattern, I'm gonna delete these, copy that pattern, and then add some variation. And I really like that. And I noticed on the track, I think it's Hurricane, they have sort of a similar drum bounce, and the hats are actually pitched a bit lower. So I'm gonna bring them down a few. I think I like it right there or right here. Let's try here for now. That's a bit too low, so I'm gonna go up. I like that right there. Okay, dope. Next thing I'm gonna do is we're gonna add this big 808. So you're gonna want basically, I just chose a big fat plug 808, but you can use anyone you want basically. But I thought I'd use this one to spice it up. So let's go ahead and record a pattern. I have the MIDI right here. I pulled it from the sample project just so I can remember what notes to play. So yeah, I want this kick to be fatter, so I'm going to pull up the setting I always use my kick. And then I'm going to add some low end with R bass. I'm just going to solo these two. And I know that this kick hits at about 84, so I'm going to pull up an EQ on this 808. We're going to go to 84, or in thereabouts, and we're just going to cut out the parts where the kick hits. That's a lot better than before. I'm just gonna solo this, and I think I don't like this part, so yeah, that's super bouncy, like rubber bandy sounding part of the 808 I really don't like, so I'm gonna turn it down a little bit. I want it to be there, but just not as heavy. There we go. So this is before. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy these over, copy this pattern over. I'm gonna just do a variation on the second half of the 808 pattern, so. See how that sounds. Nice, so I'm pretty happy with those drums. Now it's time to sequence it, give it a bit of a mix, and just make it more interesting so we're not just listening to the same loop over and over. So I'm gonna drag all of these down here. I'm actually gonna make it, I'm going to do this first, and then I'll see if I can add a bit of an intro. So let's go here. I'm also going to cut out, just so we can hear our 808 a bit more. I'm going to do 2 tracks. I'm going to cut out that little sub bass that we had. That's where it's happening, and now you can't hear it, but if I pull it back, There you go, it comes back, but we don't want it. So we're just gonna go like this. And that'll make our 808 hit harder when it comes in. But for the intro, I wanna have that sub in there, so I'm gonna turn that off. And I can hear the respaces back in. See, that sounded good. Now I'm gonna add just the rim in the intro to make it a bit more interesting. So we're gonna have nothing happening, just a sample, and then we're gonna add this rim just to build it up. I want you to sample up just a little bit. So I'm going to take both of these actually. Just go up 3 dB. There you go. I like that a lot more. And right here, I'm going to do a bit of a drop till we have this second rim. Actually, I'll move it down here till we have this second rim. So let's move everything down here. These little gaps help so much just to make an artist know when the verse is. So we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna have another little part of the hook just to add more sounds for that part. So it goes to the drop, but there's not a lot going on. We'll have more sounds coming, and then we'll have this break right here. So I'm gonna pull this down so we have the sub. I'm going to copy that rim build up again. It's basically just a reiteration of the intro leading back into the hook, which makes the verse more interesting. So now to make it even more interesting, we're going to add some transition sounds. These are pretty popular for a reason, and it's because they work 90% of the time. So we're going to have this like car sound that I always like. We're going to have that. We're going to flex it. That's Command F to open flex. And we're going to have it hit on the 1. Now these chimes are really dope as well, but they go for way too long. So we're going to have to shrink those down as well to about there. That might be too fast, but let's give it a listen. That's pretty much perfect actually. So let's go back down here. There's a crash I want to add as well. This is going to have to be lower in volume because crashes are loud, as we know. And then I'm just going to turn these all down because we don't want them all to hit at the same time too heavy. And I'm just going to have this reverse open hat. And we're going to make that flow into all those. And it should give us a nice heavy drop. So let's listen from here. The chimes are a bit too loud. I'm going to take some highs off those as well, just so they're more of a background element. Something like that should sit a lot better. I think that hits pretty well, to be honest. So I'm just going to take these, and I like to just do them all at once at the beginning, just so it's like super heavy. And then I'm going to bring the rest of these. We're going to bring the crash over here. And that should be good for our sequence. Yo guys, just before I play the final beat, I want to say a big thank you for sticking around this long. Let me know if you guys enjoyed in the comments down below, and hopefully I get to do some more of these soon. Peace.